Benevolence, dear mortals. You can call me Whimsical William. Welcome to my channel. Alright, you see the shirt. You know what time it is. It's Halloween time. The best holiday ever. Well, I wouldn't say ever, but it's up there. It's like top tier for sure. Yeah, happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you got candy. I hope that you watch spooky movies. I still haven't watched any movies yet. Like, I'm slipping. I'm gonna watch something after this video. Definitely gonna watch something. Maybe Interview with the Vampire or possibly The Craft. What I got over here? I got some good vampire movies over here. I got some good spooky movies. I did see Beetlejuice this month, which was amazing, but I've been mostly reading. And since I've been reading so much, I actually took the time out to finally read Frankenstein. This is a beat up paperback that I got from Half Price Books. It costs like $1, maybe $2. It's really beat up, but the inside is what counts, and all the pages are unmarked and undamaged. So this was the last thing that I got to read for the month. A nice little novel. It's about 280 something pages. I'm not a fast reader, so I was struggling. And I'm used to reading manga and getting that instant gratification. So I'm like, finish with this volume, next one, next one, next one. But this novel, I'm just like, okay, I'm barely halfway done. I got a lot to go. So I had to dedicate, 50 pages today, 50 pages tomorrow, just to get it done. It's my first time reading the original Frankenstein. I really like the way Mary Shelley writes. There are some things that I dislike, but most of the things about this novel I love, if we're being honest. So in this video, I've been rambling for like almost 2 minutes. In this video, I'm gonna compare the original novel of Frankenstein to Junji Ito's rendition of Frankenstein. I want to say off rip that Junji Ito's writing style really fits and is complemented by Mary Shelley's writing style. They both give you whiplash, like they're just bouncing, except the way that Mary Shelley bounces is a little bit more elegant, while Junji Ito, the way he bounces is a little more extreme. Like, it's a difference between somebody who's been driving stick shift for years. They're shifting really smoothly, but they're still driving quickly. So you feel the shifts, but it's not, making you uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Junji Ito is somebody who, I wouldn't say is a beginner at driving stick shift, but somebody who just isn't smooth. Like, they've been driving for a while, but they don't care about their passenger. That's like the best way that I could put it. Like, both of them have skills, but one is just more heavy-footed, less conscious about the passenger. Like, one is looking over at the passenger to see is their head moving back, and the other one is like, I'm having a good time, I don't care. I don't even remember that there's a passenger. That's Junji Ito. So that analogy streamlines to the fact that Junji Ito, I believe, his strong point is short stories. So he'll grab you with the first panel, the first couple of lines, and before you know it, you're into the story, and then the story's over, and then it's the next story. So when he's writing a continuous story, it seems to still have that short story feel, even though the story is still progressing. So between the chapters, it's kind of jerky, meaning a scene will end, and then the next scene, it'll be so rough within its transition. Like, it doesn't seem like the two chapters or scenes were related at first until they're connected by a character or a common theme. Mary Shelley is a little bit smoother, but she has a thing where it's like, I'm not going to hold your hand. This is what's happening. You should know what's going to happen next. So I like that. She really doesn't treat the reader like we're stupid. She just, she writes. She adds a lot of a lot of detail to the way the characters are feeling, and not so much character to the scene or the background, unless it's prevalent to the story or the dialogue, which was a really good lesson for me to learn. I have a bad habit of just adding detail wherever I think it sounds good or feels good. And I find that my story that I'm writing and the stories that I write tend to suffer from parts that have too much detail and that drag on when they shouldn't drag on. But I'm writing my first draft, so it's something to think about when I get to my next draft. I've gotten a few minutes into this video and I want to talk about the art. Now, of course, Mary Shelley, it's a novel. There's really no art to be shown. But with Junji Ito, this is an older art style of his. Very minimalist, very clean lines. There's Frankenstein down there. He did a really good job of making Frankenstein quote unquote hideous. So in comparing the story, my first iteration of Frankenstein was when I watched Penny Dreadful. That Victor Frankenstein was really fun. He was really a genius and kind of stuck up about his genius, kind of stuck up about how smart he is and how good he is at what he does. We're not really talking about Penny Dreadful, but I'm gonna bring it up because it's my favorite version of Victor Frankenstein and the creature that he created. All right, this is Penny Dreadful. I love this show so much. Everybody's in it. Dracula, Satan, Frankenstein, everybody, Dorian Gray. It's a sick show. But in this particular show, Victor Frankenstein is in the middle of making a new creature. And at first, when I watched, I thought that was his first creature. So I'm like, oh, wow. Like, there's only like a few scars and it's really tidy. He's teaching them really quickly. He's staying with them and he's hanging out with them and helping them out. And then the other, not too many spoilers, but the other creature comes and apparently it's his first creature and does a bunch of yada, yada, yada. Real dark, real brutal, real aggressive. In the original story, you get Victor's childhood, which you don't really get that much of in Junji Ito's version. And he led a pretty normal childhood. He spent a lot of time looking up to scientists and scholars that were outdated, according to his professors and his dad and everyone. And he was like, I like the way that these guys talk about the things that they've discovered, the things that they are trying to comprehend and understand. And then one day it dawns on him, I have been wasting my time. Let me get into actual science that I can use. Changes his life forever. He has a cousin or an adopted sister, and he is supposed to marry her at some point. And they're very close. Mary really gets into detail how beautiful this other character is. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was gorgeous. He wanted to protect her. And it was just a really sweet connection between two characters. The story is pretty relaxed up until Victor is like, all right, I'm gonna go to university. I'm gonna really get into science. I'll come back whenever. And he just has this dream and goal to play God, to create life, because nobody else is doing it. He's trying to figure out, why am I the only one with this idea? And he didn't tell anybody. And I kind of wish that he would have told someone, because maybe it would have made his life a lot different. I'm talking about the guy like he's a real person, because his life took a route that was really miserable for him and for the creature that he later creates. In this story, there's not a lot of detail about how he creates the creature. And at first I didn't like it, but later on the dialogue goes into, I purposely kept how I did it in the shadows because I don't want anyone else to replicate what I did and become what I've become. So that was a really nice way of having a lack of details and having reasoning behind it to streamline into the story. Now, speaking of the story, I want to say a few more good things about it. The way that the dialogue works, it's half Bible, Old Testament Bible, thou shalt not, thine eyes have seen God. that type of speech. And then it's also almost transitioning into a modern way of speaking. It's a really interesting way that this particular novel was written. It was like in a time where language and linguistics was transforming into what we know today. So some parts were like, this is very classic, and everybody's very polite even when they're being threatening. Like there's a line in there, it's completely a threat. Frankenstein's creature's like, and I will be there at your wedding night. And like I feel like in a newer rendition, a newer story that's horror, and on your wedding night, I'll destroy you. Just straight to the point. This one was like, I'm gonna lead you to decide what I do, but something bad's gonna happen. And it just, that way of speech made everything more horrific. Every character that comes across Frankenstein's creation, they say the same thing. I didn't like that. I kind of wish that some characters would have seen a different view. There's a blind character that's like, oh, I don't have a lot, but I'll help you. You seem like a nice gentleman. And it's iterated that this person can't see Frankenstein's creation, so he doesn't judge him off the way that he looks. He judges him from the things that he says, basically the content of his character. That was pretty cool. But every other character, oh my god, he's so hideous. He's like 8-9 feet tall. He's so big, and all the scars. He got the skin of a mummy. And I feel like that just, I guess in that period of time, the 1800s, the early 1900s, I guess that's how people were. But these days, like, people don't faint or flip out or try to attack everybody that's like quote unquote hideous. You got somebody that's burnt up in the fire and their skin is like mangled. They just won't get that same type of treatment. But then again, someone who's been a victim of first degree burns or whatever degree burns leads to you looking like Frankenstein. You don't have the stature and the height and the broad shoulders to go along with it. And I guess Frankenstein's creation had some really wicked scars because they really pushed forth the point that this man was hideous. He learns very quickly. He learned like 2 languages while one person was struggling to learn 1. So that was interesting. At one point, we get Frankenstein's story, or Frankenstein's creation story, and it just runs on and on and on. I'm just like, I had sympathy for the first 3 pages. Now we're like on page 9, and I really don't care about your misery anymore. Like, you don't matter. There are some other things that happened in the story that kind of irritated me. Like, Frankenstein's creation immediately just wants to kill everybody that's close to Frankenstein without actually trying to have a conversation. And then after he, kills people that are important to Frankenstein, I need your sympathy. You're my wretched creator, and you abandoned me. You don't care about me. And it's like, well, I super don't care about you now. You killed my family members. Like, honestly, I want vengeance. Frankenstein, very intelligent dude, but I don't think he really understood how much he hurt his creation by being afraid and abandoning it. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you've had to seen how hideous your creation is while in the midst of creating it. Why didn't you stop? And I guess the point of the story was he was so obsessed with finishing what he started and being able to create life from death that he was blinded and his mind was clouded. His judgment was very cloudy. And once he finished, he was able to breathe and then think clearly and see things for what they are. That's understandable. Sometimes we get so captivated by what we're doing and our goals and our aspirations that we no longer feel or interact with the journey. We only see the destination, like it's only tunnel vision. But still, if something is that ugly to where everybody that comes across is like mortified, I feel like you'd have to see a little bit of it before you finished. So those were some irritations for me. It took me out of the suspense of belief. That was a little rough. That made me kind of want to put the book down. But the way that Mary Shelley writes her dialogue, the way that she describes the emotions and feelings of characters really kept me hooked and lined in. Like the way that Frankenstein was so miserable and so alone. And the way that Frankenstein's creation, he was so miserable and alone. They both felt similar feelings, and neither one of them reached out to one another. They really could have helped each other. Maybe. Or maybe Frankenstein was just destined to be the wretch that he became no matter how much love he received. I don't know. I feel like if he would have received a little bit of kindness, he wouldn't have become a murderer, and he wouldn't have been so petty. Like, honestly, if you're a JoJo fan, Frankenstein's creation is just as petty as Dio. Like, he was willing to just continue living and living and living until Frankenstein's last breath, just to be like, and you wasn't never there for me. Just the entire time. Just popping up. You love this woman? I got you, fam. You care about that person? I got you, fam. Just ripping any shred of kindness and softness and love from Frankenstein's life. It's like after a while, I feel like you're even, you know? And granted, Frankenstein didn't ask to be here still. But yeah, let's do a comparison real quick before this video gets too long. The beginning of both stories are very, very different. The beginning of Junji Ito starts kind of like at the end of where Mary Shelley's book, ends. Frankenstein's last days, he's just suffering but fueled by revenge. He's older. The book of Frankenstein starts as, Frankenstein's a kid. He's reading literature and he's obsessed with knowledge and just paying great detail to everything around him. So that's a stark difference. Victor Frankenstein is more vengeful and more prideful in the novel. In the manga, he's more oblivious. Like, he's like, why is this happening to me? You know why it's happening to you. You know why. You abandon your creation's pissed about it. What irritated me about both versions of these versus the version of Penny Dreadful, Frankenstein's creation is like, I'm really lonely. You didn't have to make me alone, but that's what you did. And then to add insult to injury, not only is there not a being like me, but you abandoned me immediately. So Frankenstein's creation is like, make me a partner, make me somebody that I can spend my lonely days with so I'm no longer lonely. Frankenstein's like, nah, I ain't doing that. This isn't a novel. I'm not doing that. No, just so both of you could destroy the world, both of you could come back and, do more harm to me. Frankenstein's creation is like, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you. I'll go to the edges of the earth and we'll be together. We won't even bother you or anybody else. So Frankenstein, after a while, reluctantly is like, all right, yeah, I'll do that. He starts working on it and then he just stops. He's like, oh, I'm so grossed out by it. Fine, you don't want to do it twice. All right. But this is for your peace and the peace for everybody else that you know, because I'm sorry, you couldn't have not known that Frankenstein wasn't going to come back and kill more of your friends and relatives. He already did one, and he was pissed at you. He's going to keep doing it until you gave him what he wanted, or he found something else that he wanted. And you started it already, and he was already happy. And then you just abandon the project. I can't do it. You could do it. And that happened the same way in the novel, but the novel was much quicker about the decision. I'm not doing it. Maybe I'll do it. No, I'm not doing it. The novel drug it out. The novel was like, all right, I started. He was like halfway done. He's like halfway done. And I'm like, you might as well finish it. Penny Dreadful is interesting because he made Frankenstein's mate. Frankenstein's mate was like, actually, I don't like you. So Frankenstein's creation, my apologies. Frankenstein's creation was like blown away. You did this on purpose. You did this to mock me. You did this to hurt me more. Victor's like, yo, I don't know how y'all gonna turn out. I just make people and hope for the best. Lies. You're wretched. You're dreadful. You're horrible. Horrible creator. So now Victor's being haunted by Frankenstein, his creation, again. And it just makes more sense why in Penny Dreadful this creation is just more upset because he was this close to having that happiness. But Penny Dreadful's version of Frankenstein's creation is amazing because he's so poetic and he's so intelligent and he's so soft and kind but powerful and harsh at the same time. I love that duality. These Frankensteins are just brutal and they're kind of intelligent, but they have no duality to them. They're very flat characters. With that being said, if you like the story of Frankenstein, definitely check out Junji Ito's version. It's really good. It definitely holds true to the original novel. If you want a different take on Frankenstein that I think is really, really good, probably my favorite, Penny Dreadful is fire. Check that out. I think it's on Netflix. With that being said, happy Halloween. Have a good time. Be safe. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Until next time. Peace.